Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 5 of Well-Tempered Bernadette, a piano's tale of 5 cities. I'm so excited to have you here with me today. I'm your host, Valerie Dueck. I'm a classical pianist who has moved all around the world with my trusty piano, Bernadette. The theme of this series is movement. We're exploring what it's like to move to new cities, how to navigate culture shock, and why building new communities is so important, especially in the field of music. Today, we've finally arrived where Bernadette and I are in real time. Here we are in Geneva. I've had such an artistically fulfilling career so far since we moved here in 2017. I'm teaching and accompanying at the Conservatoire de Musique de Genève, and I also teach at the International School of Geneva. I've had a contract helping out with the educational outreach program for the Grand Théâtre de Genève, and I've enjoyed collaborating with so many musicians here in this beautiful city. It turns out a few months ago, I had another kind of move in store for me. This time it was to the online world. Moving to this world really took culture shock to a whole new level. After learning how to be a piano teacher online, it seems I've also reinvented myself as a live interview host. But the reason for this redirection is human connection. For me, it's become more important than ever during these times to be able to bring classical music to my audience, to connect you and me together. So any detours or rerouting that have happened on my end pale in comparison to Bernadette's own transformation. Before our lives as musicians and performers were turned on their heads by our present day circumstances, Bernadette was quietly doing her own thing right here in our living room. Well, okay, sometimes not quietly, and yes, you know it, usually out of tune. But anyway, people have met her before in lessons, in coachings, in rehearsals, and in house concerts. So Bernadette has always been my tireless workhorse. She's always been there to support me. Even though I work on her constantly, it's rarely she who gets to be in the limelight during performances. That usually happens on other more refined instruments. So that all took a turn in March when Bernadette became the headliner. All of my piano students have now met her through virtual online lessons. She's present in all of the recordings I make, whether it's for my students, for professionals, for family and friends, and she's transformed herself into a virtual reality star of her very own live interview series. Our guest today is no stranger to the art of reinvention. Originally a percussionist, Thorwald Jørgensen has redirected his own musical acumen into becoming one of the leading classical theremin players in the world. Thorwald is a highly respected chamber musician, soloist, and orchestral thereminist. He has played at festivals like Ravinia and with orchestras like the Boston Philharmonic, Brussels Philharmonic, and the Presidential Symphony Orchestra of Turkey. Thorwald works regularly with pianist Kamila Bystrova and the Utrecht String Quartet, and he's performed extensively throughout North America, South America, Europe, Asia, and Australia. But today he's coming to us live from Dordrecht, which is near Rotterdam, in the Netherlands. Thorwald, it is so great to have you here with Bernadette and me today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm just going to take a moment to remind our viewers that if you have questions for Thorwald, whether you're watching live or you're catching the replay, just type them into the chat, or if you're watching later, into the comments section, and we'll get to those a little bit later on. And of course, as always, we really want to know where in the world you are watching from today. So Thorwald, you and I have known each other for quite some time now, but I was wondering if you could tell me about the first time you actually met Bernadette live in person.
Well, obviously I met you first, which was on the other side of the Atlantic in Canada,
That's right.
where we became friends and where we performed together at in Ottawa for several times. And then, of course, we decided to make, when you came to Europe, to make a duet, a duo or a trio with Mark, the violinist. And we came to Geneva several times. And there, of course, I met Bernadette on multiple occasions and had
That's
the honor
right.
of playing with her.
Yeah, that was wonderful.
Yeah.
We had that first time you came out, we had a bunch of concerts with the Fête de la Musique de Genève. And
Correct.
then later on, we also did the same festival, but in Lausanne. And that was together with Mark as well.
Yeah.
I remember that first time, that was really crazy because you and I were ready to go, but Mark's flight, I think, was late or something. He arrived.
He came in 5 minutes before the concert, I believe. It's like tune and play.
Stage running. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was great.
Musicians live.
Yes, that's it. That's the
Yeah.
way it goes. I know. I think it was because he had a concert in Texas or something before that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
before we get any farther, we have already met Bernadette multiple times. That's old news. I would love for you to introduce your instrument to us.
Well, I play the theremin, which is this. Well, you see a little bit of it. But basically, a theremin is an instrument with two antennas, and it was invented almost 100 years ago, or actually 100 years ago in 1920. And it's the only instrument you play without physically touching. As you can see, I have two antennas, a right and a left antenna. This antenna is for volume. If I have my hand flat on the antenna, there's no sound. But if I raise, a sound will appear. And then the louder, the higher I bring my hand, the louder it will become. So basically, you can compare this to the voice, or the breathing of the voice, or the bowing of a violin. This antenna is for pitch. The closer I am to the antenna, the higher the note. And the further away I move my hand, the lower it will become. So basically, this is a string, an invisible string, that is. And then by moving my hands in the air, I can make music. It's actually very simple.
You do make it look like magic, but I know you work very hard to make that magic.
Yeah, it's actually not so difficult. And the funny thing is with this instrument that you have to be, as you told, I was a percussionist. So I was used to really moving around the marimba or the xylophone or the drums or whatever. So I was always very physically active. But with a theremin, you really have to fully control your body, because if you do any extra movement, it will be audible. And I can demonstrate, because if I would breathe too much during a performance, it will be, you will hear it. So I can show. So now I keep it straight, and now I start breathing. You see, so you really have to control this and breathe from the back, or not breathe at all. That's even better. And keep perfectly still. So that's yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Did you find that challenging to do that?
Actually, I didn't think about it too much. I started to think about it when people told me, how can you sit still for so long? Because I do full recitals or with orchestra. I sometimes have to sit like this for an hour or an hour and a half. And I just do it. I never trained it, or I never trained for it. I am lucky I can do it. But since people started talking about it, I thought, how do I do it? But I have no idea. It's just, yeah. I think it's because you cling on for dear life to keep your pitch, so that you don't even think of moving, because I have to stay in tune. So
it's that same focus.
I think it's something like that. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's kind of, I often say to my students, I don't think it's possible to sneeze in a live performance. Maybe it's a similar, like when you're performing.
If I would do it, it would go like. So that would be really bad.
It would not be graceful.
No. You can't sneeze graceful on a theremin.
Right. Absolutely. So you were just talking about how you are a trained percussionist, and actually I'm really excited because you've shared with me that you have recorded a piece that we played together with Zach Pulak in Ottawa.
Correct.
This piece by Beluntsov, the
Yeah.
fantasy for xylophone, theremin, and piano. And I'm so excited because you are doing both the xylophone and the theremin part in this recording. So that's so,
Yeah, and with the magic of recording, I can do it at the same time.
it's just,
Obviously, recorded separately,
yeah.
but on the performance on the album, it will be my two instruments played by me at the same time. So it's really a trio with three separate voices, and I play two of them.
So you've successfully cloned yourself.
I successfully cloned myself, correct. And it was great fun to do because I haven't played percussion in a very long time, at least not like a difficult part. I do still play in the symphony orchestra, but usually it's not so difficult. But this was really a challenging part. So I had to get the xylophone because I don't own one myself. I had to borrow the xylophone from my orchestra, and I had it for a week and a half. So I really had that time frame to practice it. And I thought, at the first time, I thought, how am I ever going to fix it? But in 2-3 days, I could play it. So I was really happy that I still had the finesse in my fingers and my hands to be able to play it, because it was quite a tricky part.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
So we were just talking about this transformation, or maybe reinvention, depends what you want to call it. But what inspired your change from being a percussionist towards being a thereminist?
Well, that's actually it's a very fun question. It's a very simple answer. I was bored to death playing percussion in the orchestra, because I started when I went to the conservatory. My biggest wish was to be an orchestral percussionist. And when I came into the conservatory, I immediately got into conservatory orchestra. And at the second season, I already thought, maybe this is a bit boring, because if you go, for the people who go to symphony orchestras, usually the percussionist sits in the back of the orchestra, sits like this for 3 movements of the symphony. And then the fourth symphony, they sit for like 20 minutes. And then the last 5 minutes, they can do boom, ching, boom, ching, boom, ching. And then they go home. And I was always jealous of the violinists and the woodwinds with the beautiful melodies. And it's just it's a different way of making music. I'm not saying that percussion is easy, because it's definitely not easy. It's equally as difficult as what a violinist needs to do. But I always had more the urge to play melody and to play full melody, not like when you have a xylophone part, you have like 3 notes here and a note there and a glissando. I just wanted to play melody. I didn't know the theremin at first. So my first choice was violin, because I adore violin as an instrument, but also I adore the repertoire. I'm like a romantic. I like the romantic violin pieces. And I tried violin for like 1 or 2 lessons, and I immediately thought, it's too late. This is not going to work. And then I found during the time I put my violin career aside after 2 lessons, I came to the theremin. I found it online, and it was like a musical falling in love, instant falling in love. And I got obsessed with it. So I started reading about it and learning about it. And then, to make a really long story short, I got an instrument, and everybody I told, I'm going to be a thereminist, and I'm going to be really good at it. It's going to be my profession. Everybody says, yeah. We'll see. So I got my theremin after like 6 months of searching. I finally was able to buy one, and I got it. And when I got home, my friend said, well, let me hear, Mr. Theremin player. And I set it up, and I played immediately Summertime. I could play it without ever done it before. I could immediately play it. So that was a totally different experience what I had with the violin, because I couldn't get 2 notes correct. But with the theremin, I had an instant connection. I think it loved me back. It was a mutual feeling. So, and we have been together ever since.
Aw, that's beautiful, and I'm so glad.
Me too.
So when we first worked together for the first time, this was back in Ottawa. I remember, and I bet you recall too, that I was a little concerned, because I knew the thing about breathing. If you were going to breathe, it was going to change the pitch. And I was so used to musicians or singers giving a cue with the movement or with a breath.
Yeah.
And so I was a bit concerned, and you said, "Oh, don't worry, let's just play. It'll be fine." And we did, and it was amazing. It was so easy. And one of the things that I realized was, like, when you were holding a long note, for example, And I had learned this already from the great Canadian soprano Christiane Riel. I worked with her quite a bit. And she had expressed that what happens is imperceptibly, the vibrato will change right before the note changes.
Yeah.
And so that's just physics, and that's the way it is. And so what I thought was going to be one of the biggest challenges about playing with you actually turned out to be one of my greatest joys as a musician, which is being spontaneous and reacting in the moment. So it was a total joy.
Of course, this is a different instrument which most people don't know, but I always say instruments don't make music, people do.
That's right.
So if I was a musician before I started this, so I already knew how to play together. So even if you wouldn't have managed to follow me, I could follow you. You know, so there's always an interaction, but we had also like a personal interaction and a connection. So that always helps, of course. So but it went fine. So and it usually does. I'm always in the lucky situation that I always work with good pianists or with good orchestras. And I never had anybody who couldn't manage or couldn't follow me or couldn't play with me. So it's just the musician, not the instrument, I think.
Right. Have there been any kinds of challenges though, like when you've worked with, like maybe with an orchestra or another musician that were, when you were first exploring the instrument, when you were first performing so much?
There were some issues. The major issue is that the theremin is aerial plate. You play air. So I'm sitting in a field controlling it, but everything which is around it, also conductor or the first violinist, is also. So when I play with orchestra, the conductor needs to go, the first violinist needs to go, because I need space. I'm in space controlled air. So I always say you have sopranos, which are big divas, but the theremin tops them all because they don't allow anybody with it on the stage. So I always need space. And also because it's electronic, but I had it once and it was my first concert, so I was like ruined for the next year after that. There can be interference. And in the first concert hall I played with orchestra, there were like dimmers in the lights, which exactly had the same, how do you say? I don't know the word. Yeah, and so as the theremin, so they interacted, and the only thing the theremin did was like really horrible sound. So we had to move to a different hall in order to play it. But finally we found out it was the dimmer, so we just need to put them full, and then it was fine. But these things you learn along the way. But this was basically the biggest issue I ever had and experienced.
Yeah.
But it made a lot of impression. It made a big impression. I was scared for a very long time.
Yeah, but now you've played with so many orchestras and you've traveled so incredibly much. I feel like this switch towards theremin playing has just opened up this whole window of travel for you.
Well, it changed my life completely.
Yeah.
It changed my life completely because I was just sitting in the orchestra and teaching also a little bit. And with the theremin, I literally did what I said. I said, I'm going to be a concert theremin player and I'm going to be good and I'm going to do a lot of concerts. Of course, I didn't dream. I did dream, but I didn't dare to think that I would actually travel the entire world with it. But one way or another, I managed to get a career going. And up until this day, I'm very happy with it.
Yeah. So, what would you say is the most, is there one strong value that you've taken with you out of all of that traveling? Is there something?
Yes. Well, actually, there are quite a few, because you pick something up along the way. It would be really weird if I just had one little thing. Well, but the major thing which I learned, which I think why traveling is good and why everybody should at least for a while travel a bit, is that everywhere you go, people are basically the same. And you always look at people, although they're weird, they have this culture, and I go to like really different cultures than what I'm used to. And at first I was always thinking, oh, maybe this isn't, and I was like trying to be polite and not say anything. But basically everybody wants to have a good time, be with friends, be with family, and enjoy life. And that was like the biggest eye opener for me with my travels. So, and I think it made me a lot wiser and a lot more easygoing. because I don't judge as much as I maybe used to do. Not that I did it, but I'm sure that my view on the world and on people in general now is different than it was maybe 10 or 15 years ago.
That's a beautiful outlook. I love that. I guess these days there's not so much travel going
No.
on, but a lot of the performing world has had to slow down. We, of course, were meant to perform together in Toronto in
Yeah.
April, together with Mark at the Syrinx series, and then you and I were going to perform at the New York Theremin Society. You
Yeah.
had a whole bunch of other concerts that were canceled.
I had my orchestral debut with New York, which is canceled.
Yes, I know, so sad.
Yeah.
But I don't see you slowing down at all. You have been rushing through. You've made what, two full-length recordings. You've done a recording with Camilla Bistrova called Air Électrique. I think that's about to be released soon.
Yeah.
Also a recording with your former percussion teacher, Peter Albert, on a Swiss instrument called the hang.
Yeah.
And that's very exciting. I'm really looking forward to hearing that as well. So,
well, it's the fun thing with that is that it's totally different than what I've ever done before. Because in December I had a concert in Culemborg, which is a Dutch little city, and my teacher lives there. So he obviously came to my concert, and we were sort of always in contact, but never really close, because he brought me to the conservatory, and then of course I went my way and he went his way. And he used to be he's now with retirement, but he used to be the first symphony player of the Dutch Philharmonic, so he also had a very busy and full career. So our lives interfered every now and then. But then he came to the concert and he said, I have this instrument which I'm playing now, which I think would mix really well with the theremin. But he said also, I don't want you to play classical. I want to do improvised music. And I always said, I don't want to do improvised music because I can't. I don't feel comfortable doing it. But he said, you come to me, we make an appointment, and we will just try. And we tried, and it was like instant connection, also because I felt very safe knowing him. And I know he always wanted to have the best with me, and was not out to make me look like a fool if anybody is doing that. But in any case, I felt safe, and I noticed that I could improvise. So now we made a complete full album with improvised music for theremin and hum and percussion. So it's really cool.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll be great. And do you have something else coming up on the horizon? What's looking?
Yeah, I also this is the weirdest thing I did this year. I played in a movie. Yeah, as a theremin player. I had a few scenes where I played, but I also did the soundtrack partially, not completely, because there was an actual composer doing the overall soundtrack. But I did the sections with the theremin. Really came from my hand. So I have a little section of a soundtrack also coming out this year.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And then I know that you and I are going to get to perform together again in November.
Yeah, if all goes well, if nothing goes wrong anymore, we will perform in November, I believe, or October.
November 7th.
Oh yeah, November 7th. Yeah. Oh, that's another thing. I also bought a new house.
Oh yeah.
Which I can now finally say because it's official. Which is we're gonna get there. We're gonna live there November 2. So
excellent.
Yeah.
Wow, that'll be close together.
Yeah. So I want to be able to sleep the first night in my house probably in the new house. But
yeah. Well, so I'm just going to say to those who are in Geneva right now, that performance will be in Lausanne at the L'Église Saint-François, and it's organized by Node, and it'll be on the 7th of November, so stay tuned for that. Lausanne is very close to Geneva, so I know you can make it. So we're going to take this opportunity to head over to the chat. We've got some people watching from Geneva right here. Diana is watching, and we've got Anne watching from Saskatoon in Canada. She says, I first heard of Thorwald's instrument on The Big Bang Theory.
Of course. Yeah. Of course.
And my friend Nonali, who's also watching here in Geneva, she says, what type of musical notation does this instrument use?
It's the same as any other instrument. There's nothing different. It's the same. Just black dots with pins. Simple.
And do you typically read in the treble clef or the bass clef? Or?
Both, because the instrument has about 8 to 9 octaves. So if I go low, obviously I read in the bass, and if I go up, I go to the
Treble clef.
treble clef. Yeah, although I prefer treble clef because it's easier for me to read. But I can read bass line also. Yeah.
What's the sweet spot? What's the sweet zone? Is there a sweet zone?
Well, it depends. It depends because basically it's electronic. So like for instance with the violin, you have this. There's one section where it's really going, but because this is electronically amplified, if I go to the bass, I can make a very fat sound. But if I go to the really high register, I can also make it really fat. So I can make the sweet spot wherever I go. But if there was a sweet spot, I think it's the human voice range, preferably the soprano. The soprano voice range. That is where it sounds the most expressive.
Yeah, cool. We've got some other viewers from Winnipeg. Judy Kaler Siebert is watching again. She was my former teacher, so there's a link there. And she says she's finding this absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much. And Rochelle is watching us from Napa Valley. So, oh, and my mom, Lorraine, watching from Steinbach, Manitoba. So I have one final question for you before we wrap up the question period. And you can, think outside the box, answer however you'd like. If you could perform anywhere in the world, where would that be?
It's very easy. That's not really outside the box, but I want to perform with the Concertgebouw Orchestra in Amsterdam, in the Concertgebouw. That would be like the biggest cherry on the cake. And actually, I'm pretty sure it will happen one day. Maybe not as a soloist, but as an orchestral musician. I'm pretty sure one day or another they will call me to have a concert with them. So that would be the greatest thing ever.
Well, we will be waiting for that.
Me too.
Yeah. And Amsterdam's not far. I can make it over there.
Yeah, you can. I will invite everybody. They don't need to sell any tickets because my family, everybody will be there. So
yeah. That's awesome. So before we spend any more time talking about how the instrument works and all that, I think the best way for us to understand it is if you could perform for us today, which I know you've already graciously agreed to do. And I think this is going to be so interesting for people to watch you play and see how the instrument works, and really to watch the magic happen, because you are literally pulling the notes out of thin air. So could you introduce the piece that you're going to perform for us?
Yeah, I can, of course. I'm going to do a piece I wrote myself, and it's a piece for solo theremin, voice. So I'm also going to add my voice to it, and a loop station. And for those of you who don't know what a loop station is, well, I can't show you, it's on the floor here, but it's a device. It's a pedal which I attach to my instrument, which enables me to record myself live, and then what I recorded to be playbacked, to play, and then over that recording I can add different layers. So I can stack different layers of melody or harmony or theremin or voice or effects, because I also, with my microphone, will make sea noises and wind noises. And with the theremin, I will make seagulls. So I will basically paint a picture of a windy day at the Dutch beach. That's what the piece is about. So without further ado, I think I just play it. Yeah? Yeah. So I just need to tune the theremin just a second, and then I will start playing.
Okay.
Okay.
Beautiful. Thank you. I love hearing you perform that piece. It is always so mesmerizing and peace inducing. So thank you so much. So many comments here saying how soothing. It reminds me of Vancouver Island where I grew up. And so thank you so much, Thorwald. It's beautiful to hear.
You're more than welcome.
So what an honor and a joy it's been to have you here with me on the show today, talking about your theremin, how it works, the journey you've been on with it, both in learning the instrument and also sharing it with the world through your travels. Thank you so much, Thorwald, for being here with Bernadette and me today.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank
Always.
you. Yes, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in person soon.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the end of episode 5 and the end of this series. I can't believe it. If you enjoyed today's episode and you'd like to hear Bernadette in action, you can visit my Facebook page at Valerie Dueck Piano, where I've just posted a live performance of a piece called Epilogue by Swiss composer Ernst Bloch. Although this is the end of this series, you can still subscribe to my channel to receive notifications about upcoming projects, catch the replays of past episodes, and hear live performances featuring Bernadette. You can also find the details and episode links on my website at valeriedueck.com. This being the final episode, I have many people to thank and acknowledge for their support throughout all of this series. First of all, thank you to each and every one of our wonderful guests. Of course, a very special thank you to our digital advisor, Ivan Plazačić. Ivan is a real Renaissance man. You don't know this about him yet, or maybe you do, but he's a wonderful baritone, a videographer, and a photographer for many classical music organizations and opera companies, both in Europe and in the United States, and he's a composer. Ivan, thank you so much for all of your work with us on this series. It was such a treat. Thank you to those who have helped me behind the scenes. In particular, today I would like to thank those who have helped me with the content: Fabiana Claude, Leah McIntyre, Elizabeth Mills, and my brother, Byron Dueck, who has also been facilitating the chat for us. We acknowledge the support of the Canada Council for the Arts, and she is my first class ticket to cities I've seen and places I've never been to. She is my time travel machine, and thanks to the wonders of the internet, she has become yours as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't have much to toast her with, but a toast to my dear Bernadette. Finally, a very special thank you to you, my dear viewers, for joining us from all around the world on this great journey. So until next time, stay tuned, stay well-tempered. See you soon.